My name's Stewart Wright, and my project is restoring Edwardian design landscape and natural woodland. 5 years ago we purchased the property, and we're really looking for something with a lot of potential and a lot of land, and it was the land that interested us more than the house. And it's just under 2.5 acres, and a lot of it had been badly neglected for a number of years. And while the veg plot area and the formal grass area had been kept neatly mowed, the rest of it had been neglected for possibly over 50 years, and we really didn't fully know what we were buying. And some areas were inaccessible completely through fallen trees, brambles, and it's been a process of discovery throughout the whole 5 years, and we're still finding things today in the woodland that we didn't know were there. We see it as just a long-term 10-year series of small tasks that will just come together, and I think that mindset has helped us just keep going with it. Otherwise it would be really easy to be overwhelmed by it. There's something about being outside in the garden and the woodland that is almost healing in a way, and it's almost a timeless activity that is just so fantastic, and we feel so much better as a result of just being out there, and it does feel really healthy and enriching in some form. I've done a lot of research on to learn about the different trees and plants, both their English and botanical name, and their benefit or harm to wildlife. So the starting point is understanding what's there through a number of surveys, and then understanding how they benefit the landscape. As part of the planning process, I'm really passionate about mapping things out, and because I've got an artistic background and my formative career was as an artist, and still dabble in bits I suppose as a hobby now, it really helps me to lay things out in this way, and I can understand it better visually rather than all in a single report. Most of what I'm going to talk about today is from this area here downwards, which is a combination of these formal terraces, and this is the woodlandy area. The cherry laurel has been probably one of the biggest problems or tasks to deal with, and it has grown unchecked for probably 50 years, I'd estimate, that covers an area of about 1 acre. Here's an example of just a really small part of it that we haven't cleared away yet, and as you can see it's growing back really quickly, and it's really difficult to destroy. What would normally be just a really small hedge in a front garden, left unchecked, can very quickly grow into a 30-40 foot high tree with substantial trunk and branches. The first stage for us is to get rid of it and then look at what designs are underneath it, if any. What could we do to reshape it, to build it in with the rest of the formal terraces, and go from there. If you shred laurel twigs and branches, it's known to kill other plants underneath the area. So we're looking at, can we use it a bit more strategically, I suppose, and the areas where we plant our footpaths, maybe put some of the shredded laurel on those paths as a test to see if it keeps control of the weeds, basically. It's really important to understand the condition of all the trees on the property for lots of reasons, for safety, but also for the health of the tree, both in terms of immediate risks and just good maintenance and planning. And behind me you can see a large western red cedar, which is about 33 metres tall, and throughout the last 5 years that we've been here we probably have several really significant branches fall off every year. I'm in the process of coming up with a plan at how we remove it and what the correct approach is, where do you cut it, what point, and looking at what anchor points we can work out onto other trees with some wire bracing. I'm looking at it from a risk basis, doing a risk assessment, looking at how to approach it, what are the steps, how do you manage it, what do you do if it goes wrong. I think 5 years ago that would have scared me to death, and I wouldn't have ever dreamed of even touching it. I wouldn't have known what to do. In terms of advice for the average person at home, I'd probably say seek professional advice from an arborist. When we bought the property, we looked at Environment Agency's flood risk map, and it showed that there was some risk of flooding in this area. It's only when I started doing some research later on realised that there was a proper pond that's been excavated that is roughly 200 feet long and about 80 foot in its widest part. Most of it was full of trees. There's probably 3 foot of silt there throughout the whole of the lake. In terms of what you do with it, and I recognise we could just leave it and do nothing with it, and it could just be what it is, a silty bog garden, but I think that would be a shame. We tried different experiments, and on the further side it's a much cleaner, easier soil embankment that's cut in, and you can see how it's been shaped, and there's very little erosion to it, but this side it's in much worse condition. So what we started to do, which was the most successful, is drive in hazel or willow stakes every foot to create a new embankment, and weaving into it willow and hazel rods to create a sense of structure. And then in terms of the infill, particularly this bit, this strip is getting smaller and smaller. It will almost not exist if we don't do something. So we're consolidating it with some of the rocks from the river, and then the silt, backfilling it to create a wider footpath as you go along. It will be an absolutely incredibly valuable resource for wildlife, and I'm looking at putting plants in that will attract lots of wildlife, and I think it will be a fantastic area where I hope to see lots of amphibians and maybe some reptiles. It would be fantastic to have a grass snake here as well. What I'd love to achieve is to restore the original Edwardian design that was intended in the 1914 and 15 period, and that will, I think, maintain the legacy of the whole designed landscape, garden and woodland for future generations, whoever lives there. And it would be such a shame just to neglect it and leave it in the condition that it became. So it feels like a really valuable addition. So not only is it the restoration of the design and the design landscape, but I hope to create an environment with natural resources and plants that can be really beneficial towards woodland and wildlife generally.